What's going on, everybody? Anthony Cervino here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube channel with my top 10 sneaky starts for NFL Week 14. Sam Darnold at the quarterback position. Darnold been pretty good. Past 3 games, over 22 quarterback points, depending on where you play. He has yet to throw an interception in that 3-game time period. And he's also thrown for at least 2 touchdowns in each one of those games as well, even rushed for one back in week 11. So he's on a nice little streak, and we know the offense is loaded. And this is an offense where Aaron Jones struggling right now. Justin Jefferson's involved, but he hasn't really popped. This could potentially be a game against the Atlanta Falcons where they put it all together. Atlanta's secondary has been extremely generous and leaky. They got absolutely torched a few weeks ago by Bo Nix and Derek Carr the week before that. I think it's a nice spot for Sam Darnold. If you're in a pinch, it's by Mageddon. You can put Sam Darnold in your fantasy football lineup and be confident that you're going to get a high floor. He might even pop. This is a Kirk Cousins revenge game. Maybe Cousins gets back going. Maybe this is a sneaky shootout where Sam Darnold could have one of his higher point totals of the year. But even if we don't get that, Sam Darnold has been good enough to where we can view him as a fringe quarterback 1. Next up, Will Levis. By Mageddon. Will Levis is absolutely positively in play, not only in Superflex, but in deep 1 quarterback leagues. Levis has been good since coming back from injury in week 10, 4 straight games, depending on your quarterback scoring system and where you play. Over 18 quarterback points, 3 of which in the 20s. He's thrown for 2 touchdowns in 3 of his past 4 games and has only totaled 3 turnovers in that time period. The yardage is also there. In 2 of those games, at least 278 passing yards, and he's completed over 75% of his passes in 2 of those games as well. It seems like he's getting the Brian Callahan system. He's letting it rip. He's a gunslinger. The mistakes are going to be there, but so are the big plays, and we've seen those big plays happen a lot. Notably, Calvin Ridley. He has a nice weapon in Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. As long as Will Levis continues to play with confidence and throws the football deep, he has enough playmakers on this offense to get going. And he also has Tony Pollard. Excellent playmaking running back who can catch the ball in the backfield. And if he gets going as a runner, it opens up the play action pass and more big play opportunities for Will Levis. Gets a smash matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, second easiest matchup on paper. If you're in a bind, I absolutely love Will Levis this week. Let's go to running backs. We're going to start with Rico Dowdle of the Dallas Cowboys. Back-to-back games, Dowdle over 12.8 PPR points, and he's had at least 22 touches in each of those games as well. Season high 21.3 PPR points last week against the Giants, gets 25 total touches, goes for over 120 yards and finds the end zone. It was one of the better games we've seen out of Rico Dowdle in his career. He was averaging 15.1 touches per game, but in the past 2, as we just said, he is seeing well above that number. He has a 17.9 broken tackle rate. So when he does get to the second level, he can make things happen. He's also being targeted on 22% of the routes he is running, 78th percentile amongst qualifying running backs using the tools on RotoWire.com. And again, with Cooper Rush under center, they need to try to run the football. This offense can't be on the arm of Cooper Rush. They have to do what they can to try to get a semblance of a running game. And you need to get Dowdle going in this matchup against Cincy to try to keep Burrow off the field and to try to slow down this high-octane Cincinnati Bengals offense. So I'm expecting another big volume game out of Dowdle. Again, he can see the volume and get you a high floor. He can also get the volume and get you a high ceiling because 2 games this year, over 19 PPR points. So there's a high floor player, high volume potential with some ceiling built in, and a middle of the pack but exploitable matchup against Cincinnati. Absolutely love Rico Dowdle's a sneaky start. Another running back we're going to go to is Jonathan Brooks. And Jonathan Brooks, the reason why I am including him, number one, buy Mageddon. A lot of players on a buy. You might be in a bind, and you could do a lot worse than Jonathan Brooks. Now, I don't love this matchup against Philly. It's one of the better defenses in the NFL that can do everything right. However, if Philly does their job, which means they blow this game open, Carolina has been good. They've been holding their own. They held their own against the Chiefs. They were in the game against Tampa. But if Philly does their job, this game could be blown open, which means a lot of throwing opportunities. Jonathan Brooks, a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. he's going to have pass catching opportunities in this matchup. Now, Chuba Hubbard last week, only 12 for 43 and was not targeted. In fact, Hubbard was targeted 11 times total between week 10, then they had to buy in 11 and week 12. 0 last week. But we did see Jonathan Brooks. He saw 3 targets on 6 routes run. Caught all 3 for 23, ran the ball 6 times for 18 yards on 14 offensive snaps. So out of those 14 snaps, he had 9 touches, which even more notable. He had 3 red zone carries and 2 red zone targets. So out of 14 snaps and 9 total touches, Jonathan Brooks had 5 red zone opportunities. Obviously did not cash in. But if the Carolina Panthers want to see what they have, what better time than now, especially after Chuba Hubbard has lost a fumble in 2 out of his past 3 games. You need a running back this week. Roll the dice on Jonathan Brooks. Let's go to wide receivers. Brandin Cooks, first game off IR in week 13. 3 for 16 and 1 on 7 targets stat line. So Cooks targeted 7 times on 19 routes run. When he's out there, he's seeing a little bit of volume. Now, he did cash in the touchdown, only 10.6 PPR points. What do we expect out of this Cowboys passing attack? If you're not CeeDee Lamb, all we're looking for is a high floor and some volume, and that's what Brandin Cooks gave us in his first game back off of injury. You get Cincinnati, and this game could go multiple different ways. It could be a shootout, or it could just be a game where Cincinnati blows it open and Dallas is playing from a deficit, and it's garbage time for 3 quarters. That could very much happen, but that's a good thing for fantasy football assets in Dallas. That means if you're using Brandin Cooks, he has a chance to see 7 targets plus again. And Cooper Rush is good enough to get the ball there. And I get, you go back to that Philly game where they blew it open. Philly's defense is elite. Cincinnati's is not. So if Cincinnati starts rolling Dallas, that defense is leaky enough to potentially let Dallas back in the game, or at worst, they let Dallas put up some extensive garbage time production. If you need a wideout, I love Brandin Cooks this week. Let's go to another one, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He scored 4 touchdowns in his past 3 games and has a 3-game scoring streak. Not a lot of opportunities, under 4 targets in each of those games, under 3 receptions. But in 2 out of 3 of those games, he saw over 87 yards while popping for a season-best 3-109-2 a few weeks ago against the Falcons. When I think MVS, I think Alec Pierce. People love Alec Pierce. Really the same player, the same opportunity. Pierce doesn't see a lot of volume. He gets a couple of big play opportunities a game, and he usually cashes in. Well, that's exactly how the Saints are using MVS. The quarterback, Derek Carr, is good enough to put the ball where it needs to be. We just need to rely on MVS to catch the football, which he has been doing. With Rashid Shaheed out, seems like MVS is in that exact role. He's not the exact fit. Rashid Shaheed's a much better football player, much more versatile, but we know MVS, his MO, is the big play and scoring on the big play. I think there's a shot that MVS continues his scoring streak to 4 games. It's the Giants this week. The Giants cannot stop the run. We've seen them get crushed, most notably last week by Rico Dowdle, but everybody's been crushing New York on the ground. Well, the good thing here is the Saints, we know, will run the football with Alvin Kamara, and that's going to open up the play action pass. That's going to open up the big play pass. And MVS will get those aforementioned opportunities. If you need a receiver with a high ceiling and scoring upside, you could do a lot worse than Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Let's go to tight ends. Pat Freiermuth. Freiermuth saw the Cleveland Browns 2 weeks ago, catches all 4 targets for 59, 9.9 PPR points, a really high floor player. Now, obviously, last week, he goes for 668, 1 on 7 targets. It was the second game this season where he saw 7 targets and had a similar stat line, a similar fantasy output. There's no guarantee Freiermuth is going to see volume, but he sees enough targets to bring the aforementioned high floor to the table on a week-to-week basis. The good thing, Cleveland's a pretty good matchup. Pittsburgh doesn't have a ton of quality pass catchers either. So if you need a tight end, Pat Freiermuth, temper expectations. Throw him in there. Hey, if he gets me 8 to 12 points, that's a good enough floor to where he will not lose me the week. And we also know that in the red zone, the Browns are pretty good. They can stuff the run, which means in the red area, we could see some opportunities, some red zone opportunities in the direction of Pat Freiermuth. And we see that, then we potentially unlock a ceiling. Next up, Cowboys tight ends. I like Schoonmaker if he's the guy, or Ferguson comes back from a 2-game injury absence due to concussion, then I like him. The reason why, since Cooper Rush has taken over, I get that Ferguson has been sidelined, but Schoonmaker has been seeing volume. He's had 20 targets in 3 games. He had 10 in week 11, 4 against Washington, 6 against the New York Giants. He's had at least 8.3 PPR points in all 3 of those games, going for over 11.6 in 2. Even found the end zone and has gone over 55 yards in 2 of those games, found the end zone once. Cooper Rush, there's not a lot of dudes in Dallas. We just talked about Brandin Cooks. CeeDee Lamb, yes, he's there, but he's always seems like he's a little bit banged up with something. There could be a time where Dallas might shut him down. I think that is within the range of outcomes. But this Dallas tight end position, it's plug and play. Whether it's Schoonmaker, and we already know what Ferguson can do as the normal starter. I'm good with either one. So if you're in a bind, either one of these tight ends, whoever is the guy, is fine to start in PPR leagues as a sneaky start this week. Cincinnati, 31st against the tight end position. One of the easiest matchups on paper. They've been gashed week in and week out for double-digit PPR points. They've been giving up touchdowns to the position as well. I think whether it's Schoonmaker or Ferguson, you have a high floor with touchdown upside this week. Let's go to my wild cards. We're going to start with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. All this guy does is score touchdowns. He has scored a touchdown in every game since week 6, except one. In that one game in week 10, he started a new streak coming out of it from weeks 11 to 13 in these past 3 games. A total of 4 touchdowns and another 3-game scoring streak. The difference is he's starting to get an uptick in volume. He's had at least 5 targets in each of the past 3 games, seeing 6 in one and 8 in another. He's also gone for at least 61 yards in 2 out of his past 3 games, which are both season highs. The great thing is the matchup. You get the Jacksonville Jaguars. We talked about Levis earlier. Well, he's going to have to throw the football to somebody, and that somebody has been Westbrook-Ikhine. I get Calvin Ridley is there, and it's a revenge game for Ridley, and I expect Ridley to have a good game. But this could be one of those games for Tennessee where they could potentially blow Jacksonville out of the water, because Jacksonville, they can't catch a break. They just put their quarterback on IR. Again, this is a reeling football team. They could very well pack it in. Tennessee, look for this offense to come out throwing haymakers, and look for Westbrook-Ikhine to potentially find the end zone one more time. We're going to close out with Kenneth Gainwell. This is a pure game script play. This is a pure play. Hey, I'm in a bind. Everybody's hurt on my team. Everybody's on a bye. I need to pick somebody up. Well, Kenneth Gainwell. Why do I like Gainwell? Because if Philly does their job and they blow this game open, the whole 4th quarter, we could potentially see Saquon Barkley on the bench, right? If Philly has a 21-point lead, there's no point of keeping Saquon Barkley in, especially against the Panthers, which means we could see an extensive run out of Kenny Gainwell as the closer, as the garbage time back. In Carolina, the easiest running back matchup on paper. We've seen them give up a lot of fantasy points to multiple running backs in the same backfield. This is a pure speculative game script plug and play. This is not a guarantee by any means, but nothing in fantasy is. But if you really are in a hole and need to find something with a potential pulse this week, I love Kenny Gainwell in potential garbage time scenario.